Hey folks, it's Aaron. I watched a really cool video by Scotty Clark. I don't know what he believes with rapture timing and all that kind of stuff, but I thought it was a great video nonetheless of just the general time frame of the trib. And he had pointed to the two coins basically in Genesis and in Matthew essentially. But I just wanted to add a few things to what he was saying, but there was a lot of great points that he made, and so this is very exciting for me. So 10 reasons why we could get out of here, and this being sort of the foundational point here. But one thing that I noticed here is Judah was the one that sold Joseph in Genesis 37 for 20 pieces of silver, okay? And Judas was the one that sold Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. And the thing is, though, Judah and Judas, I've learned that when you translate these two names, they're actually the same thing. So because this was Hebrew and this is Greek, so really it's Judah and Judah. Isn't that fascinating? It's actually the same name. It's really Judah and Judah. So Judah and Joseph was a type and shadow of Christ. But anyway, we've got 20 and 30, and your eye just sees this and he goes, okay, 20, 30. And what Scotty did was he related this to the second coming, which I'll talk about a little bit. But this is just more of a rough, generalized video and some extra points added to what he was saying. But 2030 minus 7, what we're looking at for our trib, would put us in 2023. Okay, so that's point number one. There's the verses that I was referring to. So Genesis 37 is talking about the 20 pieces of silver. Zechariah 11, 12 and 13 is the prophecy of the 30 pieces of silver. And then Matthew 26, 14 through 15, again, talks about Judas. We don't need to literally get into that. You guys can read it yourselves. But the second thing is Jesus is referred to as the Lion of the tribe of Judah in Revelation 5:5. I'll get that out. It says right here, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals. And so not only we've got Judah and basically Judah and Judah basically with the 20 and the 30. Now we've got Jesus being identified as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Well, man, the plot thickens. The plot thickens. Okay, so what's next? What's the next thing that's cool? Well, if we go to Luke 3, we see a genealogy. Now, there's genealogies in Matthew and Mark. For sure. Well, anyway, I just want to focus on Luke. Luke, the genealogy in chapter 3. I'll show you. So here's Luke chapter 3, right? So if we're talking about now Jesus himself. But if we go back if we count backwards, what we end up getting it to is we get to Jacob and Judah, and Jacob is the 23rd person mentioned in this line, and then it eventually gets back to Jesus. But then Judah is number 24, so we know that it's called Jacob's trouble, and Jacob on this genealogy is listed as number 23, and Judah's number 24. And here we are in 2023 waiting for Jacob's trouble. Okay, so here's our next point. Just a fun little point since we're in the same category. And I like to look at my numbers. I think every verse and chapter number is ordained by God. I don't ignore the numbers. And in Luke 3:23, sorry, it's kind of blurry. Now Jesus himself began his ministry at about 30 years old. So we have a 23 here, and we have a 30 here. And we're in 2023, and we're thinking that maybe 2030 is second coming material. Okay, so I'll get rid of that piece of paper. I don't need it. Okay, so the next point here is, here's their second coming verses. The summary of this, and I'll keep it brief here, but they all three of these areas have a theme of being dipped in blood, wearing garments and wearing dips. So in the second coming, essentially, we're waiting for Jesus to show up, but it mentions him, having blood or wine or that kind of thing on his garment. Matthew 26 is, he was saying, okay, the person who dips their bread in the cup with me. It might actually say that in John, but nevertheless, you guys know the story. then that person is going to betray me. So we got a dip here, we got a dip here, and we've got a dip. Actually, it wouldn't be here. It would be in. This is the wrong chapter. This is actually talking about Judah in a different context. It's actually in Genesis 37, which I brought up over here. That it's basically, they told Jacob that they dipped his clothing in goat's blood. And so it all really, really relates to the second coming. It's a second coming theme. And then we've got this Judah connection with 23. So it's really, really cool. Okay, so another point that I wanted to bring up, I guess we're on point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's interesting that Moses was 120 years old when he died in the wilderness. So basically Moses was 40 years old when he left Egypt. You can figure this all out in Acts chapter 7 as well. But I'm just touching on the basics here. Moses was basically 40 when he left Egypt. And then he was 80 when he came back to free them. And then he died in the wilderness at 120. Aaron was 123 years old when he died in the wilderness. And what do you see here? You see a 20 and 23? 23, yeah! And these guys represent the law. And Joshua, which is my next point, represents Yeshua, which is the one that brought them into the promised land. And Joshua is the 6th book, which is really neat too. Here's our verse references for these for their ages. But Yeshua, the 6th book, which could maybe represent the 6,000th year, right? We're approaching that time frame. We're about 6,000 years from creation, right? And here we are. Joshua, the 6th book, is what brings them over, and they take over Jericho. So that's really fun. There's way more things here, but I just want to touch on some stuff, and I might be talking about these points in the future. But okay, just some fun math here. 20 plus 30. If we're looking at 2030 as the end, and 2023 as potentially our departure. 20 plus 30 is 50, and basically Jubilees are 50-year cycles, right? So that's really neat. 20 times 30 is 600. And again, if you added a zero to that, that's 6,000. And like what I said here with Joshua, we're about 6,000 years from creation. That's really cool. Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters happened. I believe it's in Genesis 7. Anything I say, guys, obviously check it out yourself in the Bible and verify everything I'm saying. I'm just excited about all these things. So there were 600 chariots in Exodus at the Red Sea that were taken out by God when they parted the sea, when they chased them down. 20 divided by 30, wouldn't you know it? It's 0.66666. It's an eternal 0.66666. And we know what the mark of the beast is. So will this be the end? Will this be the end, 2030? Will that 2030 be the end of this whole system? I don't know. But just an interesting math that you can't, it just makes it go, All right, so a few more points here, and then we'll end with this thought. So John chapter 2 is when Jesus turned the water into wine, his first miracle in John, which was just before Passover. Fun thing is, there were 6 pots there. There were 6 pots. And could these pots, again, represent the 6,000th year, right? Here's Joshua, the 6th book. And we've got the 600s and the 666 over here. And we've got 6 pots at the wedding. I don't think this was an accident. Now, what does it say? They're 20 or 30 gallons. Some translations will say 20 or 30 gallons, which is so fun. 2030. Perhaps, is that what it's hinting at? And other translations will say, it was 2 or 3 firkins. Well, that looks like 23 to me, doesn't it? So it's just either translation you read, you either see 2030 or you see 23. So that's fun. To me, that's fun. I just can't ignore the numbers. Okay. Ezekiel 4:6 talks about Judah, and he had to lie on his right side for 40 days. And like I said in my video, I think it was last week, but I'll show you the chart there here. There's been about 40 Jubilee cycles since the destruction of the temple to 2030. And there's our 40 connection. There are tons of 40 connections throughout the Bible. That's another study that I was doing on the side, but 40 is a big deal. 40 is a big number. But so Judah, staying in the theme of this Judah theme, he was told to lie on his side for 40 days. Revelation 7:5, it's interesting that Judah is mentioned first when it comes to the ones that are sealed. So again, just a quick summary. Judah means Judah or Judas, and could this be pointing to 2030? I always found it fascinating that, like, I knew Joseph was a type and shadow of Christ when he was being sold for 20 pieces of silver, but I always had a hard time with it being like, why didn't God just write, he was sold for 30 and he was sold for 30? It always bugged me. But when this came out and Scotty Clark put that together, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is probably it, So take it with a grain of salt. I have no clue for getting out of here in 2023, but man, this is really fun math, and I'm sure we'll find some more things that connect to these themes. This is just a quick snippet of some concepts here. So you guys know what's going on around in the world. If you're watching, you know that chaos is happening, and anything could happen at any moment. So get tight with Christ, enter into relationship with him, Romans 10:9-13, as well as any other salvation verses. The basics are in my description box below. I love you guys very much. Go, Jesus, go. See you in the clouds. Bye.